This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Friday, October 2nd. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ephraim Graham. We begin this half hour with breaking news. President Donald Trump and his wife, First Lady Melania Trump, testing positive for the coronavirus. The shocking news comes just hours after word that senior aide Hope Hicks tested positive. The news is reverberating around the world and means that for now, the president and First Lady will isolate at the White House. Heather Sells has more.
Shortly after midnight, the president tweeted the news with an optimistic tone, saying that he and the First Lady tested positive and that, quote, "We will get through this together." The First Lady also tweeted, "We are feeling good and I have postponed all upcoming engagements." The White House released a Friday schedule showing a planned rally has been called off. A memorandum from the president's physician released early this morning said the two are both well and plan to remain at home within the White House during their convalescence. Dr. Sean Conley writing, "I expect the president to continue carrying out his duties without disruption." It did not mention whether either is experiencing symptoms. Just last night, the president phoned into the Sean Hannity show to talk about his aide Hope Hicks, who has tested positive and is reportedly showing symptoms. He also admitted to close contact with members of the military.
You know, it's very hard when you're with soldiers, when you're with airmen, when you're with the Marines, and the police officers. I'm with them so much. And when they come over to you, it's very hard to say, stay back, stay back.
How the president's health will affect the campaign is unknown, but having to pause in-person rallies and appearances 1 month out will certainly force him to recreate his campaign style. It will also likely affect the next debate set for October 15th. At this week's debate, the president made fun of Vice President Biden for wearing masks. The president has also come under criticism for holding large rallies with most people not wearing masks, and he is rarely seen wearing one. He joins a number of other world leaders like Britain's Boris Johnson and Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro, who have also tested positive. The president is 74, which puts him in a category of people most adversely affected by the virus. If he becomes sick and incapacitated, he has the ability under the 25th Amendment to transfer power temporarily to Vice President Mike Pence. Heather Sells, CBN News.
And CBN News medical reporter Lori Johnson joins us now to talk more about the president's diagnosis. So we know, as Heather said, he is 74 years old. That puts him in a high-risk category. Do we know of any other underlying conditions?
No. So that's the great news. Now, some people are saying, well, his weight, and we do know that people who are overweight and obese tend to have more problems, and that's an issue. So that could be something, but we know he doesn't have the more serious comorbidities, you know, the immunosuppressancy, the organ failure, diabetes and heart disease, lung disease, things like that. So that's great. And, you know, Ephraim, lots of people his age and his size recover without a hiccup. And when you think about it, the president apparently is asymptomatic. And if he had been a normal citizen, a regular citizen, he might be one of those people who never even knew he had it and recovered without incident. And so that's what we're hoping and praying for. And there's every reason to believe that beyond the comorbidities, look at the president. What's the one word everyone uses to describe him? The Energizer Bunny. We know that he only gets like 4 hours of sleep, and he has amazing endurance, that he does these rallies from sunup to sundown. And we also know that he took hydroxychloroquine early, which could offer him some protection, even though he took it months ago, could offer him some protection even now.
All right, we'll be watching for sure. Now, what kind of treatment can we expect doctors to be giving him right now?
Well, we haven't heard yet from his physician or from the president himself what kind of treatment he's getting. That's private. But you would think that hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, azithromycin, the antibiotic, maybe even budesonide, which is the allergy medication that's the inhaled steroid. These things have practically no side effects. They're only positive and have been shown to help people in the early stages. Now, the big heavy hitters, the remdesivir and the dexamethasone, those are possibilities, as well as convalescent plasma. fantastic. The convalescent plasma sometimes people get infections when they have that. And the remdesivir is wonderful. It's an antiviral, and we know when people get other viruses like the flu, they often take antivirals like Tamiflu. That stops the virus from replicating. But see, the problem with remdesivir is it's an IV, and you have to have it every day. So there are some drawbacks, and we know that doctors their motto is first do no harm.
Absolutely.
So we'll have to wait and see what if any, of those types of prescription medications the president has given.
All right, Lori, thank you so much for your insight. Much appreciated.
Sure.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo left Rome today. During his 3-day stay, he met with Italian and Vatican officials. Pompeo said both he and his wife tested negative on the plane 20 minutes before landing in Croatia. He is reconsidering his upcoming trip to Asia as a precaution. The Secretary of State says the last time he saw President Trump in person was on September 15th. The U.S. Supreme Court begins its new term Monday, one justice short due to Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. That could be a factor as there are cases that could affect religious liberty and maybe your health care. CBN's Paul Strand brings us a look at what's ahead.
The main religious liberty case involves a Philadelphia Catholic foster agency tossed out of placing foster children for the city because it wouldn't, for biblical reasons, agree to hand kids over to same-sex married couples. The question is whether the city has infringed on the agency's religious liberty.
I think many of the justices think that Philadelphia, even if the Constitution didn't compel it, the city ought to have granted a religious exemption in these circumstances.
A huge difference this term is the absence of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This likely means less power for the liberals she led and more for the conservative-leaning justices. And that's why all eyes are on the confirmation process of Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
Her record shows that she'll be a justice, as she said, more in the mode of Justice Scalia than in the mode of Justice Ginsburg. And that's precisely what the Democrats are afraid of.
Obamacare is once more on the line this term. The justices will decide if the individual mandate that forced Americans to get health insurance is unconstitutional. And if they rule it is, whether that then kills the entire Affordable Care Act.
And that's the case Democrats are making their main argument against both President Trump and Amy Coney Barrett. They maintain he wants to kill Obamacare, and she's the justice who would help do it.
That case, filed by 14 Republican attorneys general and the Trump administration, would eliminate the Affordable Care Act. Not change it, eliminate it.
Most legal scholars don't agree because they say this case has little chance of destroying the whole Obamacare law. And a former Barrett colleague says it's ridiculous to assume her vote is already decided before the case is even heard.
It is her conviction. And she has said over and over again, whatever her personal, political, or religious beliefs, her fidelity is to the rule of law first, foremost, and only.
But until there's a decision on Barrett, the Supreme Court is split 4-4. That could cause real trouble if the presidential election is contested and the court has to basically pick the president, as it did in Bush versus Gore.
I think this will end up in the Supreme Court, and I think it's very important that we have 9 justices.
A huge question is whether a growing conservative wing of the court could use the next abortion case to weaken or even overturn Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion nationwide. No cases are on the docket right now, but 2 soon could be. Whether Mississippi can ban abortions from 15 weeks on, and whether it places an undue burden on patients to force them during a pandemic to visit a doctor to get the drugs needed for a medication abortion.
The court's new term begins, as it traditionally does, on the first Monday of October. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Supreme Court.
At noon, an audio recording of grand jury proceedings that ended with no criminal charges against police officers for the deadly shooting of Breonna Taylor will be released. A court in Louisville ruled the content of the proceedings should be made public. Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron did not object to the file's release. Cameron has been criticized since announcing the grand jury did not charge the officers for killing Taylor. The decision sparked protests in Louisville and around the country. Protesters are demanding more accountability in this case. Fires in the wine country areas of Northern California continue to burn, causing major destruction. Governor Gavin Newsom assessed the damage from the fires yesterday. Right now, firefighters are watching for violent winds, which could make the flames stronger. The blaze has already destroyed more than 140 homes and is threatening thousands more.
We continue to be immediately focused on suppression strategies, particularly here at the Glass Fire. 2,100 firefighters are working this fire exclusively. We have firefighters from all across the country not just across the state of California working these fires.
Numerous studies have linked bigger wildfires in America to climate change, from the burning of coal, oil, and gas. Scientists say climate change has made California much drier, meaning trees and other plants are more flammable. Meanwhile, in Argentina, some 300 firefighters and several hydrant planes are trying to put out 2 large forest fires that remain active. Dozens of people were forced out of the mountainous area of the province of Cordoba. One of the fires was headed towards a valued ancient church called Estancia La Candelaria. It is the largest Jesuit temple in the area and a World Heritage Site. Argentine authorities are still investigating whether the fires were intentional. Coming up, an annual tradition turning to screens to go on. Just ahead, how the Biblical Feast of Tabernacles plans to continue in spite of the coronavirus pandemic. Stay with us.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Every year, thousands of Christians from around the world travel to Jerusalem to celebrate the biblical Feast of Tabernacles. But as CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl shows us, this year will be different.
This year marks the 40th anniversary of the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem hosting the Feast of Tabernacles. Much like the rest of the world, 2020 is making its presence felt.
Because of Corona, Israel isn't allowing people in. We've had all sorts of troubles over the past 40 years of the history of the embassy, when there were wars here, rocket wars, terror campaigns and all, and yet our people always came.
Regardless, ICEJ Vice President David Parsons says the show will go on.
For the first time in the 40 years of hosting this event, we're not able to bring in these thousands of Christian pilgrims, so we've had to move the feast online.
This year's theme is Prepare the Way, and will provide more than 100 online seminars and Bible teachings, as well as virtual tours and worship experiences.
In fact, we probably have more speakers and more worship leaders involved in this feast than in any feast before, because you don't have to go through all the trouble and expense and for them to fit in their schedule of coming to Israel for a week or two.
Still, Parsons admits they will miss certain special moments from years past.
We'll miss the people coming, that experience when their eyes open, they experience Israel and Jerusalem for the first time. We'll miss that moment when they are able to express their love, concern for the people of Israel in the Jerusalem March or our traditional Israeli guest night. But otherwise, we're going to have a big, happy feast.
In 1980, a number of Christians living in Israel got together to host a celebration of the feast, and that resulted in the ICEJ's birth with a mission to support the Jewish state. Several months earlier, Israel had declared Jerusalem as its capital, sparking an international uproar resulting in the closure of 13 embassies here. Parsons calls the feast a prophetic event.
The prophet Zechariah foresees a time when all nations will come and celebrate it. And that's a time when the Lord is here himself in Jerusalem and to keep the feast. But we're forerunners. We're coming each year and by faith saying we believe that day is coming. We want to go ahead and prepare the throne of the Lord here in Jerusalem through this feast.
Joining us now from our Middle East Bureau is correspondent Julie Stahl. Julie, it certainly looks like it will be a colorful event. What activities can attendees expect?
Well, as we heard, Ephraim, there will be, Bible teachings and seminars. Teachers like Billy Wilson and Ann Graham Lotz, Angus Buchan, the worship, virtual tours, and ironically, more people will actually be able to join than if the event was in Jerusalem. Of course, the organizers hope next year that things will be different.
But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said it could take a full year for Israel to emerge from its nationwide coronavirus lockdown. How is the community feeling about the rise in coronavirus cases?
Well, people are confused. They're angry. In the beginning, Israel did so well with the whole lockdown and coming out of it quickly, and now they're saying they probably came out of it too quickly. So there's a lot of protests against Netanyahu. The debate really seems to be how far can they push the health system. That's what we keep hearing here, is that the health system is on the verge of collapse, and they don't want that to happen. So it's that versus the economy. Most people aren't sick, yet many have lost their jobs and their livelihood. So it's been quite a challenge here.
Finally, what can we expect this week from Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, in Jerusalem Dateline this week, we have a story actually about how the IDF is helping all this with the initiative of the coronavirus, helping the population, helping the public. We went to Nazareth. Now, Nazareth is Israel's largest Arab city, and it's 30% Christian, 70% Muslim. And you wouldn't normally think of the IDF and Nazareth people getting along and working together, just for maybe obvious reasons, but it's actually bringing people together. So that's a fun story that we have, actually. If you could say that, about the coronavirus. Also, we have Chris Mitchell's prayer at the return. He led the prayer for repentance for anti-Semitism. And we're going to take a look at how to build a sukkah for Sukkot. And what I want to say to everyone there is Hag Sukkot Sameach. Happy holiday, happy Sukkot holiday from Jerusalem.
Indeed, Julie. Thank you so much for your time. I want to remind you that you can see more news from Julie Stahl as well as the entire Middle East Bureau from the team tonight on the CBN News Channel. That is Jerusalem Dateline. It begins at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Still ahead, how the NFL plans to move forward after a COVID outbreak forces it to postpone. Stay with us.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Well, it was supposed to be a weekend of football, but the NFL is pumping the brakes on this weekend's game against the Tennessee Titans and Pittsburgh Steelers. It comes after the league's first coronavirus outbreak. And CBN Sports Director Sean Brown joins us now with more to talk about the changes. So, Sean, this is not the first time a player has contracted the coronavirus. Why is this time different?
Hey, good morning, Ephraim. Well, it's different because they're in season. I mean, they've got schedules planned. This was a scheduled game. Now they had to figure out exactly what they were going to do to schedule the game. When you have 3 to 4 players and 5 or 6 personnel testing positive for the coronavirus, who started out asymptomatic, but now are showing flu-like symptoms, according to Coach Mike Vrabel. You have to kind of reschedule the games or take precautions to keep all the other players safe. Fortunately for the Vikings, the team the Titans played last week, last week. There are no symptoms. There are no positive. No one tested positive for that organization. But you just want to be precautious moving forward. And so it's different because they have to adjust the schedule. And so it's a big deal. I think they're handling it the right way. They've paused. Daily testing helps with that and helps track the results. And so that's why it's a big deal, because they're in season. And so they just have to make those adjustments.
Now, Sean, the NHL and NBA both adopted a bubble format to keep players safe. Many, of course, wondering why has the NFL been slow to adopt this process?
Well, part of the issue is that the teams, you're looking at an NBA or NHL roster, they're much smaller and can probably, play within some sort of a bubble. The NFL's bubble is going to be a little bit larger because their rosters are, you're talking about 52 players, which, even if reduced 40 players, it's still a lot of players to put all of those teams and all those players and staff, into a bubble-like system. And so that's why they have daily testing, quick results, those kinds of things to try to catch it before it begins to spread. And so that's the biggest issue, really, is just they're working with a different format because of the nature of the game and the players, the number of players on the roster. That's the biggest challenge. It's really just the number of players. They have a bubble-like system. It's just not. It won't look like what the NBA or NHL has, just simply because of the roster.
So, what is the plan moving forward with the games?
Well, it looks like they're going to move. They're going to postpone the games, the game between the Steelers and the Titans, to Week 7. Which is October the 25th. Now, the Steelers are actually scheduled to play the Ravens that week, but in Week 8, both the Steelers and the Ravens have a bye week, and so it works out if the Steelers play the Titans in Week 7, October 25th, simply because of the bye week coming up. And so that's the plan moving forward, provided no other, the Titans or the Steelers test positive in the coming weeks. And so that's the plan moving forward. I'm just glad they get to play. I was looking forward to that game, as well as I'm sure the players and coaches were as well. And so that whole October 25th, that's the day.
All right. Look forward to that. Thank you so much for your time, Sean.
You're welcome.
Coming up, a look at a new film hoping to add a fresh perspective to the pro-life movement. Stay with us.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep. As the world watches from the outside,
it's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
The pro-life movement has a new voice in the fight, courtesy of a new film. Order of Rights is the story of a pregnant single girl whose family is pushing for an abortion while the young father wants to keep his child. CBN News has this exclusive preview of the film.
Oh, God. Where do I go from here?
I really messed up.
No matter what decision Emma makes, your life will have been affected. You might have to forego playing college football.
Don't let him tell you what to do. This is your decision.
Maybe we should think about getting married?
There is another choice.
It's a baby, Em.
And you said you would support me.
I do support you, but I can't condone murder.
Don't you tell me what I can and can't do with my body.
We actually have a kid who wants to be a dad and not a deadbeat. But first, he needs a court to recognize that the child has a right to live.
Pretty dramatic. As you can see, it's a fight that ends up in court, and you can see what happens in Order of Rights. It begins streaming today to Amazon, Google, Apple TV, and Vudu. Time now for your Friday Faithful. As we wrap another week, I leave you with this thought. Life does not end at 20. You can discover love in your 30s, chase new dreams in your 40s, and find purpose in your 50s, as well as make new moves in your 60s. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. Keep moving and keep living. God is ready to work through you. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. Have a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. We'll see you back here Monday.